Welcome to the December 16th, 2021 Parma City School District Board of Education meeting. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Nucio.
Mrs. Bratz.
Present.
Mrs. Carpus.
Present.
Mr. Price.
Present.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Present.
Mr. Vaughn.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Nucio. Dr. Smilak, can you please confirm that this meeting is currently being live streamed?
Yes, it is.
And can you make sure that the live streaming throughout the meeting continues? If there's a problem, please speak up immediately so that we can address it.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. At this point, then we move to retirement recognition. Dr. Smilak.
Thank you very much, and actually, Dr. Schneider will represent us for this purpose.
Good evening, everyone. We are honored to celebrate the work of Kathleen Montgomery this evening and wish her well in retirement. Ms. Montgomery started in the Parma Schools in 1988 as a vocational lab aide in the culinary arts program. In 1999, she became a media assistant. She continued to work as a media assistant until her retirement at the end of this year, serving in Green Valley, Parma Senior High, and most recently Hillside Middle School. In 2005, she received a state-level life award from PCSD. I would like to share some words and quotes from various performance reports and evaluations from Ms. Montgomery, some of which date back to her time working with students in the culinary arts programs. It was a bit overwhelming to read the comments, and I was struck by the same language, words, and phrases that were used by different administrators and different grade levels. A portion of what was shared about Ms. Montgomery: asset to the program, reinforced training skills, shared ideas for program improvements, team player, willing to go the extra mile, excellent quality of work, dedicated, instrumental, self-starter, takes on new challenges, creative, a pleasure to work with, valued. We are fortunate to have her, led numerous improvements, created a pleasant environment for students to read. These are wonderful things we have to say. Exceptional, 1 in a million, patient, tireless, tactful, and innovative. All from different reports over the course of several years, and that was only a portion. Most recently, a few words from Ms. Cook, principal at Hillside Middle School. Kathy Montgomery has made the Hillside Media Center her home. From the first day that Kathy entered Hillside, she was on a mission. She was determined to make the Media Center a more welcoming and relaxing environment where students and staff would want to consistently visit. She started with decorating windows, reorganizing books, and moving furniture. Within just a few weeks, she created exactly what she set out to do. Kathy has always been willing to help others and quickly became our technology queen, even taking on the organization of daily video announcements. During Christmas time, Kathy also became Mrs. Claus by helping wrap hundreds of gifts that we donated to students in need. We appreciate all that Kathy Montgomery did for the students and staff at Hillside Middle School. We wish her all the best as she begins her retirement and hope that she will always remember Hillside. Ms. Montgomery, on behalf of the Parma City Schools, thank you for your work, your service, and your compassion for students. Congratulations on your retirement. If you would please, we invite you to come forward and accept this plaque in recognition of your retirement. What it says here is, with great gratitude and sincere congratulations, we honor the retirement of Kathleen Montgomery. May the days ahead be filled with joy, excitement, and good health.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and it was a pleasure working at the Parma City School District. I really loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're being chased.
You're being chased.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yes, she did.
Kathy, come on up, we'll take a picture.
Good night.
You're going to have a little less colorful view now at your house right now. Your big mural every day.
Yes, a big mural.
Oh my goodness, come on, get over here.
Right in the middle, right in the middle.
Right in the middle
You're in
there.
the center of attention.
Can't I hide?
No, no.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, Kathy.
Thank you.
Yeah, enjoy. Chuck, be good to her.
I'm doing the best, you know.
Mr. Schweitzer, can I make a couple comments about Mrs. Montgomery?
These are good.
Now I got cash. Go ahead.
I just want to add my congratulations to you, Kathy. I've known you pretty much all of those 30 years, I think, and have seen you in different roles in the district and never heard anything but excellent comments about your work and devotion to kids. And I always had great interactions with you when you were working in the district as well. So thank you for everything that you've done for Parma Schools, and wish you the very, very best in your retirement. Enjoy. I did not like seeing it on the agenda. I will tell you that. Did not enjoy that, but I wish you well.
Any other comments? Thank you very much. Any other recognitions tonight?
Yes, we have another recognition this evening. I'd like to take a few moments to recognize the efforts and leadership of Joseph Razzo. Joe Razzo is a 7th grade STEM teacher at Greenbrier Middle School. He also serves as the Myers Field man. So through cost-cutting measures and efforts to be efficient, that used to be a full-time position in the central office, Mr. Razzo now picks it up as a supplemental contract. And he has embraced this role as a leader and as its own separate full-time position, to be honest, in addition to his primary full-time position in the classroom. There are times when we are able to see and notice that an individual is performing at a very high level, they are meeting and surpassing expectations, and they are leading in exemplary fashion, with a view on the big picture while also tending to the details that impact their work and the people that they serve. For that reason, we are acknowledging Mr. Razzo this evening. In the fall of 2020, he led the Myers Field experience during COVID protocols and restrictions. It was a pretty unique circumstance. This past season, with a more traditional atmosphere, his collaboration and relationships in particular have stood out as outstanding. With humility and with an eye on honoring our history and learning from previous leaders, Joe has met repeatedly with Mr. Bob Bolton. He has collaborated with, it's pretty long list, the Parma Police Department and officers, our athletic directors, the Safety and Security Department, the concessions crew, the maintenance staff, the business office, media outlets, and more than several other school districts and athletic directors. He has been professional, timely, and attentive. He has helped to facilitate the best experience possible at Myers Field. His collaboration with the Ohio High School Athletic Association in particular is noteworthy. And we were awarded more playoff games this year for football than we have in recent years. And I attribute that directly to Mr. Razzo's work and his ability to be professional, managing all these different facets of that preparation, and also accommodating these different entities that I have listed. I believe it was the semi-final game. We had Medina and St. Edwards played that evening, and we had over 8,000 guests. It was wonderful to see the stadium with that many guests. We brought in significant revenue to the concession stand, and we brought thousands of people to Parma that otherwise would not have been here, which of course is a benefit to our local business. Myers Field provides us with tremendous history, and it's an impressive facility that benefits our community in several different ways. We are grateful for Mr. Razzo's work in ensuring we receive the most benefit possible from our teams and guests at the top of the experience. So thank you for representing Parma Schools and pushing us to be better and do more. If you would please, we invite you to come up and receive a plaque in honor of your leadership. Well done. What we have here says, with gratitude and sincere appreciation, we acknowledge the exemplary leadership of Joseph Razzo. Thank you for collaborative efforts in regard to Myers Field and subsequent progress related to student achievement, improving transparency, and fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
I lobbied for a fancy shoe and case, but Sean said it was too much money. Congratulations.
Go ahead, get in there.
Congratulations again.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Good job. I'll keep on going there.
And I had nothing to do with this one. For anybody that does not remember, Mr. Razzo was also the recipient of one of our teacher awards at Convocation this year.
In August, yes.
Yes, and a fabulous teacher that I've had the pleasure of working with my own children. So we are very fortunate, and he definitely made a lasting impression on our kids when Frankie, who everyone knows loves his sneakers, was worried about them getting dirty in his class, and Mr. Razzo found a nice place on a top shelf for them and put his eye back in his books where they belong. So I'm eternally grateful for keeping that young man on track.
Nice. Congratulations.
Keep up the good work.
Mr. Rezzo, Ms. Montgomery, thank you so much for coming. You are more than welcome to the next time. We have a business meeting at this point, but it is a socially appropriate time to leave if you would like to.
That's social.
Very good statement.
You're welcome.
You're welcome to stay as well. I mean, that's what
Bye, guys. Have fun at Hockey.
You guys want them here all the time? Oh, goodness.
You have no idea the smell you're in for.
It already smells.
If they're kids, we want them, yes.
Bye, guys.
Thank you
Happy
for coming in.
holidays.
Happy holidays, yes.
Okay, we're still in recognitions. Are we moving the spotlight on learning?
That was spotlight.
The doctors?
That was spotlight.
Okay. So do we have any more?
We don't. We just have information on the board at this point.
Could we insert something here instead of the communications, Steve?
I don't think so.
That way they don't have to sit here.
Yes.
Okay. We have one more information to the board. Mr. Novak? No.
Thank you. So, Mr. Superintendent, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I understand that this is President Schweitzer's last meeting, and so I wanted to thank you on behalf of the law department for the commitment that you've shown to our city, our children, our families, and the commitment that you brought back. Your resume is unmatched, and we were so happy to have your expertise. We hope that you will continue to be engaged in our community, but we can't thank you enough for what you brought to this board. And so with the board's indulgence, I'd like to step forward and hand an Outstanding Citizen Award to President Schweitzer from the Law Department. And thank you for all of your expertise, Mr. President.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm still going to be around.
I hope so. The board is counting on it. Thank you very
So
much.
nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Wow.
Can we get a picture with Tim and John in your class? And Charlie?
One day, I don't wear a tie.
Hold my hat?
No. So you want me to?
Right in the middle.
Neil, John.
Short and.
Oh, sorry, she's grabbing these.
You have to help them out.
Ready, 1, 2, 3. One more, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
You too. Great Christmas.
I've never officially been called on, should I just keep proceeding?
Oh, sorry.
So, next, and thank you, Law
I
Director.
did say retirement recognitions, but
Yeah, but then we just kept
kind of
going,
quickly
so.
turned it over.
And Recreation Director, sorry, thank you very much for the presentation. We do have the 2022-23 school year calendar. This is not for adoption this evening, this is simply for presentation. You'll see that we actually are looking again at a pretty traditional model. We open this up after we present it in public for essentially, it has to be open for public comment for 30 days. Often we get a lot of different opinions about calendars, but what folks don't realize is that we are largely governed by some factors that we don't necessarily control on a year-to-year basis, including the collective bargaining agreement. Our teachers work 185 days, and that without changing that through a CBA, which we don't anticipate negotiating differently this summer, it's 185 days, and so there's only so many different ways to configure that. We did look at a couple different options this year, starting after Labor Day actually. But the drawbacks to starting after Labor Day, again, with that 185-day consideration is, if you keep the same breaks, you're going to go into mid-June. June 15th would actually be teachers' last days. If you abbreviate the breaks, you've really got, you're taking 3 days off of Christmas and 2 days off of spring break, and so that also, points to some challenges that folks didn't choose. So we did open this up to popular vote for our employee groups, classified and certified, and this was by far the plurality. So this would again look like a traditional calendar. Again, this was not for vote tonight. The public can certainly comment on that. Ms. Bobbitt will put it on our website as the proposed calendar, and then we'll have it for your consideration at the January 27th meeting.
Can you just quickly explain the process of how many eyes go on to that before it, like whose eyes, like in what roles take a look at this, so it's not just created in a vacuum, how you do it?
Yeah, for the most part, again, because there aren't a whole lot of different variables, honestly, I sit down with some different worksheets and go through some.
But then it goes somewhere else.
But then it actually goes to our employee groups and our forum, which is a teacher group, to look at it, make sure that we have the right amount of days. And we've been doing this, I've been doing this for 4 years, so for the most part, it's pretty similar in terms of the worksheets and folks that look over it.
Okay, so what day is Easter?
So if you look at that, it would be
The
the
day is
8th.
Sunday, I get it. What date is
April,
Easter?
April 9th,
April 9th.
2023.
Okay. So it's the week before.
Correct.
And so, all right, so Good Friday is the 7th.
That's correct.
All right, got it.
Did we pop out of, we were using it last week of March?
It really depends when Easter falls, in all honesty. This Easter was close enough to not just use the last week of March. We haven't had anything specific. Easter tends to be the variable there because we know that we have a good amount of people that celebrate that, and so, giving Good Friday and even potentially the Sunday afterward is somewhat of a challenge. If Easter falls early enough in April, you can wrap spring break around it. So again, that's just for presentation. We'll take comments, but again, comments tend to be a little bit naive in terms of some of the variables we have to work with. Next, as we continue to have different members of our senior leadership team present, just like we have now started, Mrs. Stratford was second, Dr. Schneider will be third, he will present his goals and much of the work he is working on as the Executive Director for Human Resources and Operations.
All right, thank you for the opportunity to talk this evening a little bit about the work that we're doing in HR and operations. So as we do with all of our meetings, we start with our district goals, increasing student achievement, improving transparency, and being fiscally responsible. And as we get into some of the details of the work that we are undertaking, I want to break down kind of our action steps and work each of those three goals. So major functions for the Executive Director: overseeing human resources, transportation, nutrition services, safety and security, business office, board resolutions from HR, including classified and certified, and then also resolutions from the business office. One of the major functions is certainly to collaborate with Pbla, and in particular also OAPSE, which I'll talk more about. Oversee the athletic programs, just a couple updates that I'd like to share with you this evening, and then also to facilitate suspension. So the teams that are connected to HR and operations are obviously quite extensive, but the direct reports for me are listed up here. We have Supervisor of Safety and Security, Mr. Ridgely; Fires Field Manager, we heard a little bit about Joe Razzo; Director of HR, Pat Hoy; Nutrition Services Supervisor, Mr. Gorman; Supervisor in Buildings and Grounds, we want to bring that to the Human Services, Mr. McIntyre. Supervisor of Transportation, Ms. Mullica. We have one administrative assistant in the business office, Kathy James. The permit and mail clerk position is currently in transition. And then Zachorowski continues to fulfill his responsibility. The central office receptionist, Ms. Pictus, and also one of the HR clerks. Okay, so some more details about the work that's taking place in those departments. As I go through some of this, what I hope will be really clear is the common theme in terms of collaboration, and specifically collaboration with our classified staff. So the overall theme and goal there is to better support our classified staff, to make sure that they have an appropriate voice in the direction of our district and our schools, and also to make sure that we're proactive in creating platforms and opportunities for them to share their ideas and their perspectives. Certainly understand that they bring a wealth of experience and knowledge and ideas that we haven't necessarily tapped into because of the last few years. So as I said, that's a common theme in what we're doing. So a few of the highlights specific to fiscal responsibility. The Helpdesk ticket program is something that we've used in DIS, led by Ms. Manning. We've used that for more than several years. It's widely viewed as quite successful. Communication is very good, responsiveness, the ability to track tickets and progress. So we chose to move away from the school due program, which was our previous system to process requests from the custodial department or the maintenance department. Moving from school due to Helpdesk, that was a savings of just under $8,000 a year. And we really thought it was a win-win because of the cost savings, but also because it's just about home. It's easier for the user to use if you're inputting a ticket. It's easier for the agent, in this case the maintenance department or custodians. Alan and I can oversee all of those tickets and kind of track the progress. So we feel good about how that has played out in the last few weeks since we've made the change. We have also brought over a small number of safety and security processes to the Helpdesk program. We may expand that in the future. We are currently vetting a system to use the Helpdesk process for building permits. Currently, actually, we're still using carbon copies. Easy to have misinformation and miscommunication. So talked with the building leadership, but more importantly, I've talked with the principal secretaries of each of the buildings to talk with them about that process, how they feel about this change, and the concerns that they have. We will test that in January, assuming that things go well, and we may have some minor tweaks. We'll start that in late January and February. We'll have a similar process for external entities that would like to make a building permit request, and then we will just kind of filter that into the Helpdesk, and then we'll continue with what we would do for that intro. Another area of fiscal responsibility is increasing the substitute pay rate based on the audit first. It's fiscally responsible to raise the rate of pay for substitutes. The alternative, as you know, we discussed previously, is to pay our teachers periods. So there was a financial piece to that, and there's also just an emotional and practical toll that is on the building. So we can actually save money by paying the substitutes for them as opposed to paying the teachers for them. We also believe that it puts the teachers in a better position to serve our students because we were simply period subbing through lunch and through paying far too long. That's going to happen, and that's just part of the process of trying to make sure that all the coverages are met. This reduces that saving us funds. We identified a process to communicate free and reduced lunches across departments here in central office. Prior to this, the Treasurer's Department would more or less, quote, shut down for a few days in the spring. To gather that information for their accounting purposes, we were able to integrate that into the annual student refresh form in one box. And now we don't have to take this through the spring. We are undergoing various contract reviews. I had two that I wanted to highlight. Our contract for service to the elevators is something that we chose to walk away from. We picked up another company. That contract is about $6,000 in savings a year. We feel about the flexibility of the contract and how that will look. We are also reviewing our COPE contract. Mr. Razzo was part of that. Bob Gorman and a few other people has looked at that contract. And I'll talk a lot about that because the new CEO will probably make a decision on that soon after the break. In terms of fiscal responsibility, also we are trying to increase the use of our facilities internally and externally. And I talked a little bit about that with Mr. Razzo. We have some excellent facilities, and we want to make sure that they are accessible and that we can bring people in. We continue to review the systems that we have in place at Byers Field, concessions obviously, also the security that we have at Byers Field, and the system that we have for tickets and for games. In terms of student achievement, we do project a significant reduction in teacher period subbing, as I mentioned before. I can see that as a significant win. We have successfully implemented the district substitute program. This is the new ESSER funds that we have built in subs. That provides a level of stability to the building that they do not have otherwise. They have that one consistent building sub that students know, and they have relationships with, and the teachers and the administration know that person is flexible and what they can cover. We have collaborated with the Parma Police Department to secure the services of a school resource officer, which is one of the resolutions for this evening. So we are looking forward to that partnership starting after winter break. I've conducted site visits with each of the building principals to identify areas of improvement that will impact student achievement. We brought back something that apparently was in process more than several years ago. That's the athletic conference. So we brought in our 6 athletic directors, those 6 principals, Mr. Razzo, maintenance department, different central office leadership. And we had really been missing kind of an athletics direction collaboration conversation for a period of time. So it's been very nice to bring that back and to open that back up. We have also ESSER funds that will help with some plans that we have for athletics. One of those being the implementation of youth sports programs on 5th and 6th grade level. So one of the expectations for the COVID funds is to increase student participation in athletics. So what we have targeted here, as I said, is 5th and 6th grade. These are sports that we will offer starting in the spring. It will be volleyball, flag football. The goal is to mirror our varsity athletic programs and really just increase opportunities to participate. We worked with the rec department and this was the target to make sure that we are not directly competing with sports opportunities through the rec department. But our seasons for youth sports are on the opposite of theirs, so hopefully we'll help each other and compete with one another. We are also hopeful that a number of our middle school and high school coaches will coach these teams. So they will have a chance to work with that ability. We've spent significant time working on professional development for the transportation department, specifically with the resilient learner side of the infographic. It's a very nice collaboration with the assistant superintendent and her departments. And what we did basically is we sent surveys to the drivers, the monitors, the mechanics. We tried to get as much feedback as we could. We sent surveys to building leadership, and we had heard that there were concerns with the systems that we had in place to help with behaviors on the bus. So we wanted to get all of that out on the table. And we went through that data, tried to find common asks or common ground. And we have come up with what I consider to be a pretty comprehensive plan that we will use to more or less hit the reset button on the buses with student behavior after the winter break. Some kind of low-lying fruit that I think is long overdue. Updating the referral process from buses to the buildings. How are they going to get that information? Another cumbersome process to improve upon. Making sure that everybody knows who everybody is in terms of if there is an issue, this is the contact for this building, and just really opening that up. One of the things that came out of those conversations was the posting of a position as BCBA, the Board Certified Behavior Analyst. We will hire one through ESSER funds, which will drive us with our students and our transportation staff. They will obviously help with student behaviors, and they can also increase capacity of the transportation department members to do in terms of improving transparency, I've mentioned a few ways in which we have tried to solicit feedback from staff members. Another one that I didn't mention yet is some work that we've done, and this is Mr. Musio on this, and to solicit feedback from the HR department, the BIS, SIS department, and the treasurer's department. Really just trying to make sure that we support one another and everyone gets the right information at the right times and the format that they need. That is likely to lead to some changes in our HR database system, which I think also is one of what we do. We want to make sure that programs can talk to one another. Current inability to do that requires the manual entry of data sometimes 3 or 4 times. Increases the likelihood of mistakes. Some of the other pieces specific to classified staff, as I had mentioned, we asked about the new permit process. We've asked about job postings, which I may talk a little bit more about. Another piece that we brought back that we feel has been very useful has been the labor committee meetings. So we have our OPSI, local presidents come in. We have one of these meetings this afternoon, central office leadership. And again, it's a platform and venues and have a voice and share concerns and work collaboratively. We take notes for those meetings and we send them out to everyone in the district in an effort to be transparent and again for classified staff. I see this as one avenue to upload. We have an improved process for requesting job postings. This will go on a Google survey. Previously, people had a phone call and those were lost in translation and somebody would write a note and walk over and talk to them. We'll use one survey for classified, one survey for certified. Jackie Carney and I will be notified every time somebody fills out the survey. It asks for only what we need, nothing more, nothing less. And then it'll filter automatically to a spreadsheet. We've added a few boxes on the HR side, information that we need to share within the department to make sure we do it the right way. The principals or the principal secretaries, when they submit that request, they can view everything that's on that spreadsheet. So fully transparent, they can track the progress, likely to reduce. We've instituted an improved process for PPE requests. We have a very transparent process for staffing in the spring of 2021. A document that we worked on over the summer, we call it the HR Opening Information Today. This was, behind this was to be as thorough as we could, as comprehensive as we could, and list everything that secretaries and principals could possibly need to open the door. Things that they might ask for in August and September. From staffing to protocols to lunch monitors, different guidelines, substitute expectations, just a big long list of everything we want to put in place to make sure that they had it before they asked. We have facilitated a SWOT analysis for several departments, so we are trying to draw out strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. We started this with the HR department, we completed it with the athletic departments, we do some more departments after winter break. But the next slide shows some examples of how this played out. Give you an example of the HR department and the areas of focus that we discovered after going through this. So, sent this to everyone in the HR department, sent it to building leadership, central office leadership, again, trying to draw out as much information as we can and see what the needs are, what we can do better. So here's what we came up with. Number one, we are prioritizing accuracy over time. And to be honest, there was times when people they want to be responsive and they want to give an answer when somebody calls, as soon as they send an email, but people were not necessarily on the same page. Some people perhaps left out of conversations when things were communicated. So the HR department has been empowered to be accurate more than they are at times. It's better to wait a day and wait again and make sure that they're getting the exact information that they need and that that answer can be consistent in a similar situation comes up later. So that has definitely been helpful to prioritize. Communication, we want to ensure that information is accessible, thorough, all in one place, provided before it is used. That HR opening document, example of that. We've also definitely used a Parma Proud. Processes, we want to create and communicate processes that are efficient, replicable, and likely to reduce mistakes. So a few of them that I've mentioned so far have helped in those areas, surveys, job postings. So that brings us to goals. So obviously in the departments that we're talking about, there are just countless things that happen within a week or within a day. All of those things are attended to, more or less immediately. But in terms of overarching goals this year and moving forward, bigger picture type considerations, improve the relationship with the OPSI and the professional experience of the OPSI members. And that goes back to what I had talked about before. Supporting them appropriately, ensuring that they have a voice in what they want to be doing, ask for their feedback, use their feedback on that platform for them to do so. I think of all the action steps that are up there, I've talked about all of them except perhaps negotiations. Obviously, we have negotiations for classified and certified coming up. So we have a comprehensive plan, some proposals, and negotiations. The second goal is to improve upon the clarity provided to staff and the processes which are communicated and utilized. Again, being able to probably talk about each one of those. That's certainly very focus. The last slide are some priorities for this year and moving forward. So, healthy organization. That is certainly the priority. A collaborative approach to continued improvement and responsiveness to our classified staff, knowing that if we support them better, they can better support our students, and they have the answers. Negotiations, which I had mentioned, classified PD, which again, we've had some really nice collaboration with the Assistant Superintendent and Curriculum Office so far this year. Our board certified behavior analysts have led more than a handful of PD sessions for classified staff this year. The goal with our classified staff is to clarify, reinforce, and monitor and celebrate their work. That is a leadership mantra that we've used with certified staff over the last few years. It's quite successful, and certainly something that I'm doing, transferring that to the classified staff. Again, efficiencies and improved processes. Athletics we talked a little bit about. And then the last piece there, building our future. Of course, that's a critically important piece for all of us, a priority moving forward. Certainly, I believe that there are significant efficiencies that are in front of us that we can take advantage of, knowing that if we can do so, we can take some of that time, energy, effort, and resources that have been expended on the operational side and ensure that they are used to directly support students. So that is everything that I had prepared.
Go figure.
Well, no, first of all, compliments. It's a great presentation, and you're obviously a busy guy. As we go, as we went through there, one thing that really caught my eye, a lot of it caught my eye, but the one thing that kind of really stood out for me was the youth sports that you spoke of, and moving participation in sports down to grade levels. I know that anybody that's ever listened to me, one thing of the experiences I've had is really your sports programs depend on the quality of the program much more than the size of the school, quite honestly. It's the quality of the program, the participants, and getting things started at an early age, and keeping them involved, and getting the participants out, and putting a quality program together in each sport will lead to far different results down the road, regardless of, again, how everybody decides the size of schools and so on and so forth. That's the key, is the athletic program. So I really like that. Along with a million other things you put up there, it sounds like you're going to be a busy guy. Thank you.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
I wasn't even trying to be funny.
I like that. You didn't have to. It was like, I like to focus on the athletic council and the youth sports piece that you presented, which I thought were outstanding, because I know without collaboration amongst everybody in the district, with collaboration, that's what's key to the success of the programs. Almost word for word, and I had it written down before he spoke.
All right, so I'll skip.
Very good. Thank you for the presentation.
I'll skip my focus on the youth sports. Two pieces stood out to me. As you went through the whole presentation, to see the evolution of our senior leadership team, and then to see the evolution of you in our district, you can't fully understand how you were the right person to get these processes in place. The value added to our district in an area that most people wouldn't directly link to the education of the students was phenomenal right there. And every bit of that, I am so grateful for. I have one question about it. As we negotiate the Coke contract, if we're going away from Coke or saying whatever the result may be, can we ensure that scholarship piece stays whole? Whether it be the Coke scholarship or another scholarship, can we make sure that stays whole?
We lost that last year.
We did, because we didn't sell enough because of COVID. That wasn't related to whatever.
Some of the options that we've looked at currently would not be a scholarship.
Okay.
So there are some concerns that we have with the co-contract, the minimum requirements for purchases, the price, the quote rebates that we receive on some of those products is really not advantageous. So there's potentially a significant financial benefit to walking away from Coke.
Okay.
So I don't know what we would do with those funds, scholarships, some other choices, some of them we make. Our concern is really twofold. One, distribution right now is obviously a significant issue with the giant provider, and some of these counter. The other is, there's an upfront cost if we were to leave code, which they also provide us with some refrigeration equipment in the neighborhood of about $50,000. We could do that. We could order that in advance. We could have it in, and really wouldn't take an extensively long period of time to make up those initial costs. So if we moved away from Coke or another agency, although they're the only ones that responded to our food, we would have more flexibility in what we could do, what we could serve, and where we could get it from, and we could do it. So what we gain in scholarships, we pay for in Coke. The question is, who wants to control those funds before they come? And we're now very pleased with the prices.
So it's possible, though, that the financial gain, that's something we would have some discretion in terms of looking at scholarships.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we could find another place to make them whole, definitely better.
What are the scholarship levels?
Is there
Pam.
$1,000?
Yeah,
And how many?
Three.
We receive $5,500 a
Oh,
year.
we're wrong, 5,500.
Okay.
They were given, I think, two $800 ones a year, weren't they?
We
For
were
each
given-
school?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And the amount would vary based on the number of kids that attended the dinner, but I always put it out as an $800 if the kids, you got it for it.
But to add to Dr. Schneider's comments, there are different prices if you want the scholarships and if you don't want the scholarships. So you're essentially paying for it upfront or
Right.
throughout the year, and then they're just giving you a rebate.
So-
And they call it a scholarship.
If we have the
Essentially, that's-
leadership to find another place to continue those practices, that's important. The ins and outs of the current contract, all you. That was kind of my, that I would like to continue offering that to our students. But
And given the current situation and the supply status, we may choose to continue for a period of time.
you truly shine tonight, though.
Well, I remember when your job description came out, when you were hired for this position. And after I read all of the many responsibilities that you would be required to perform, my first thought was, who are we hiring, Superman? And I think tonight reinforces that because your responsibilities are enormous. And it's really interesting to see all the different parts, besides the nice sports stuff that's already been spoken about. I really like the emphasis on the building the relationships and improving the relationships and valuing the input of employees into their job here and the work that's being done to realize that they have a lot to offer in terms of helping to improve efficiencies and what you're doing. And so I really like that a lot, and how everything is also geared to supporting our student achievement here. So in ways that, we don't necessarily think of the linkage between some of these things and it ultimately affecting student achievement. So thank you for sharing all of this. Good job.
Dr. Stein, you do a great job. I'm glad I got to know you through the business meetings, and you're well organized, and you put together a program, and I'm impressed. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I would just, before I dismiss it's been up there for a little bit at a time now, but I wanted to tell a short story. So when we posted that job, and as Mrs. Bratz remembers, it was a pretty daunting job description. So we had one applicant. It was Dr. Schneider, and we had still sort of an interview, although the interview was more, let's listen to the folks, that are going to be working most closely with Dr. Schneider, and ask him some questions, share your concerns, and so a good amount of those folks were OPSI folks, and the OPSI folks, when we started here, absolutely adored Mrs. Stropko and could not say enough positive things about the relationships that she had and her responsiveness. But by all accounts, as Mrs. Stropko moved into the assistant superintendent role, there was a little bit of a gap in the organization, honestly. And so our OC folks had gotten to be a little bit, they felt a little bit sort of abandoned, kind of some, kind of afterthought kind of feelings. So as we went around the room, half of the people told Dr. Schneider why they didn't want him, and half of the people told him why he didn't want them. And it was really sort of an awkward interview process. I mean, walked out of there and actually asked Dr. Schneider, "Are you still interested in this?" And I will tell you that to a person in that room, they have all come up very informally, and sometimes I think informally is where you really figure out where people are very sincere in their comments, and said how thrilled they are to have him there, because they're reminded of how they felt when Mrs. Straupo was in that position. They're reminded of having somebody who is responsive and who cares and who really wants to professionalize what can often be forgotten about positions. And these are largely folks that live in Parma, that have worked in Parma for years, that have kids in our Parma schools, and they're a critical part of our organization, and yet we need systems in place for them. We need somebody to be as attentive as Dr. Schneider has been. So I'm extremely grateful for that end, and just in general to the counsel that Dr. Schneider is providing. I think we've got a really, really excellent team with the three of us that I just continue to hope will continue to grow and guide this district through some very critical ventures with our Building Our Future plan.
Rockstar.
Congratulations. You are the star tonight, by the way, so you've been up there all night. Let's not forget the handicap ramp, too, normally. That was, lay that one on your list.
And we have a very strong team. And for instance, in that example, Alan was instrumental. And as I kind of ran through pretty quickly the direct team reports, we have some very capable supervisors. Right? Make all those things happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, before we move on, I did want to make sure that I had a few comments in public for Mr. Schweitzer, because unfortunately it is his last meeting with us in this role, although we are all sure that John will continue to be involved in the district, and quite frankly, we're very grateful that John will be involved in the district. And I just want to sort of remind everybody of where we were in the summer of 2016, which is when really Mr. Schweitzer first became involved. I certainly wasn't here yet, so I didn't live this to the extent that you all did, but this district was toxic. There were folks taking to the street in protest. There were board meetings that are actually shown in college classes right now as examples of what not to have a board meeting, how not to have a board meeting, because this is how this can turn into. And Parma couldn't even get a levy on the ballot. They didn't have the wherewithal to put together enough votes to actually get a financial levy on the ballot. I mean, it was really in turmoil. And at that time, Mr. Schweitzer was drafted from vacation. And I think we've all probably heard the story a few times. I think Mr. Vittardi might have been one to make that call. He was in Niagara on the Lake and enjoying some time with his family. And the call was, "Hey, we're having this meeting and we need you." And Mr. Schweitzer, because of the love of Parma kids, really, this wasn't about his ego. This wasn't about some type of political platform. It was about making sure that things would be okay for Parma kids. Got in his car and made it here, and I think has continued to, from that day forward, made sure that he would do everything he could to make it okay for Parma kids. And he calls himself a voice for kids, and he has always been that in any meeting that we have ever been a part of. He had a long and distinguished career in Parma, then in Mentor, and then in Euclid, which honestly are three pretty iconic districts in Northeast Ohio. He didn't need this. He did it for his neighbors. He did it for his grandchildren. He did it so that Parma kids could have the same opportunities that his kids had, and that he wants his grandkids to have, and he wants every kid in the forthcoming generations to make sure that they have. And his leadership style is understated and yet extremely influential and powerful. John has a way of working a pretty critical point sometimes into a folksy kind of conversation where you don't feel threatened and you don't feel demeaned and you don't feel any type of directive, but you get the point. And you also understand that he's right. And I think that he has made all of us in this room better. I know that throughout my career he made me better. I know that he has made our district better. And the healthy organization that Dr. Schneider referenced tonight in his PowerPoint, that started when John Schweitzer got in the car from Niagara-on-the-Lake and drove up here. Because everything that's happened here has had his fingerprints all over it since that moment. And I know that in whatever role that we have, he will continue to make sure that things are going to be okay for Parma kids. Thank you, Mr. Schweitzer. I think all of us are better because of you.
I can't really talk right now. I'll speak later. Thank you. Thank you.
Concludes my remarks.
Is there, are you still doing?
I'm just gonna speak before you.
She,
vote on
I'm
it.
sorry, yeah, she's right before the
Before we vote on it?
Real
Okay,
quick.
that's what I was
agenda.
confused.
My fault, my fault,
Okay.
my fault. I just was like, what?
All right.
Okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, what are we at?
All right, there we go.
Where are we at?
Communications.
Information to the board? We are done with that now?
Correct.
Communications, Mrs. Carpus. See, Vicki, it's all your fault.
John?
Oh. Dan, can I see you for a second?
Here they go.
We just got all the warm and fuzzies today. And that right there is really who runs the district, make no mistake.
If she would have called me, I would have gotten on a plane.
Helicopter, maybe. Steve, did you want to go here or do you want to leave?
We got a lot to go through,
Okay,
so I think if we wait, we might be a little better to do this.
perfect. Sean, do you have anything?
Yes, I was going to speak about House Bill 126.
Yeah, you want to do it here? Go ahead.
Yes.
All right, you do it now.
Okay, so House Bill 126 passed the Senate today by the vote of 24 to 7. And House Bill 126 changes the Board of Revision process. School districts will be prohibited from filing initial complaints on property. So when property sells, say it's valued at $8 million, it sells for $12 million, we'll file a claim against that property so we can get the value with the $12 million. A lot of times, we come to a settlement with the property owners where they'll give us a direct payment. We will not be able to do direct payments in the future. This year, so far we've gotten about $903,000 in direct payments. Last year it was $1.4 million. That will be prohibited, which I worked into my forecast because I'm very aggressive in having us try to settle to get direct payments. But also, districts would not be able to appeal the decision from the Board of Revision. So if the Board of Revisions gives a decision and we don't like it, we could go to the Board of Appeals. And then if we go even further up, all the way to the Supreme Court, we would not be able to appeal the Board of Revision's decision. So that could negatively affect our revenue and property taxes. This House Bill 126 is going to go back to the House, where the House has to concur with the Senate's vote, which most of the time is just formality. And then go to the governor's desk to be signed. And this will take effect in tax year 2022. So it's not right now, but in a couple of years it's going to affect us significantly. As Dr. Snell likes to say, they find ways to take away public education funds. And unfortunately, we're going to lose out on this.
We'll have a call to action in the legislative piece too about it.
Thank you.
That's all I had on that.
Any questions for Sean? Or
Thank you, Sean.
any other communications this evening? Cindy?
Cindy?
I would just like to make mention of the trip, if that's all right, that Mr. Price, Mr. Vaughn, Mrs. Carpus, myself, Mr. Ruda, Dr. Smilek, Mrs. Stratko, Mr. Schneider, Mr. Hoon, Mrs. Vanek, and, the
All
three
three high school
high school,
principals.
our three high school principals, Ms. Andrzejewski, Mr. Satel, and Mrs. Urban. went to another district, and this was a trip all coordinated by Dr. Smilek. We visited Mason schools just slightly north of Cincinnati, and also the Lakota School District right next door. And we were able to tour the facilities as well as speak with many administrators in both of those districts in anticipation of what we'll be looking at next year in terms of considering, what's going to happen here in Parma schools with our facilities and the meetings that Dr. Smilek has set up. So it was quite an eye-opening experience. We, I think, got a lot of information and a lot to think about in the course of the 2 days that we were there, and I think it will be helpful in the process, so I thank you for arranging that. It gives us more exposure to other districts, not just what we think about our own district because of our experience here, but going to other places and being aware of different ways things are done. So thank you for coordinating that trip for us, and we look forward to, bringing all those thoughts forward as we get going on this process next year.
Absolutely, thank you for going.
Very good.
Thank you.
For the summation.
I
think I
That
can hit
concludes
that.
communications.
Does that conclude communications this evening? And this is yes. That concludes communications. Do we have any amendments this evening?
Yes, we do. We have 2021-12-549.1. It's authorized the school resource officer agreement with the city of Parma.
Okay, then I make a motion for resolution 2021-12-529 for the adoption of amendments.
Second.
A motion and second for 2021-12-529. Any questions or comments?
Is this an amendment or a walk-on?
It's a
This is
walk-on.
walk-on.
Okay.
A walk-on for SRO.
And it's called, considered an amendment as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, can I make a few comments?
Go ahead.
We obviously really don't make this a practice, and I thank the board for their consideration of considering adding this. We have been in negotiations with the Parma Police Department really since the end of September, would be probably an accurate time, which is when we looked at the need for the presence of the police in our buildings, and we have police in our secondary buildings. Shiloh and Greenbrier Middle School specifically were having a very hard time staffing their police shifts. So we don't have somebody dedicated every day, the same policeman dedicated every day. What we have is folks that will pick it up, rotating police in and out, so to speak. And the Parma Police Department actually approached us about saying, hey, listen, we realize we can't fill you every day, but if you were willing to consider one full-time person assigned to be at both of those schools, we think we can make that happen for you. And so we entered into negotiations knowing that that could be advantageous, not only from the standpoint that we would have police presence, but also from the standpoint that at a middle school level especially, I think that the opportunity for a relationship to form between the same person there on at least a 2.5 days a week kind of basis, I think is really positive as we continue to look at ways to build relationships with students and put into place preventative practices and restorative practices. So given both of those needs, we thought it was a great idea. It took a long time to negotiate, and that's why this is a walkout. We literally finished negotiations in this contract, and Dr. Schneider, phenomenal at making sure that we didn't lose anything in terms of what our bottom lines were as a district. We concluded really just actually last night, and so if we don't get this on tonight, our next meeting where we can conduct business isn't until the end of January. If we can get this on tonight and you're amenable to this, we can actually start an SRO at both of those middle schools in early January. So we're hopeful and for your adoption and grateful for your consideration.
Thank you for the explanation.
If we have questions, do you want them now or at voting?
You want an hour at the end.
That's up to you guys. I'm happy to answer
We can-
questions
we can-
whenever.
It's when we get to the resolution.
Yeah,
It's
Okay.
appropriate spot.
Yeah.
Have we had a vote on this yet?
You have not voted yet.
Okay, 2021-12-529, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Schweitzer?
Yes?
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-12-529 has been approved. At this point, we move to public participation for comment on, do we have any this evening? We have none. Then we move to approval of record of proceedings. I move to adopt resolution 2021-12-530, approval of record of proceedings from the December 2nd, 2021 regular and special Board of Education meetings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2021-12-530. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Nucio.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Yes?
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus?
Yes.
Mr. Kreis?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-12-530 has been approved. That moves us to curriculum with Mr. Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Schweitzer.
Not a problem.
I move to adopt resolution 2021-12-531, approval of the 2022-2023 high school course guide. Second.
We have a motion and a second for 2021-12-531. Questions or comments?
This is where we'd like to have Mrs. Strauko walk us through some of the changes, well, not some of, she will walk us through the changes
You want to
from last year's to this year's.
You want to do all of those, or you don't want each at a time?
There's a document, I think, that lists all the changes. So Mrs. Barkowski shared the middle school, the high school
But you
guide.
can do them all then.
Yeah,
That's not
and then the Pbla guide. So I'm just gonna go through, a lot of times it's fee changes, it's name changes, so I will be less than 5 minutes. So what you saw or what you're going to see is middle school, high school course guide, and we have separate Pbla middle school, high school course guide with different numbers. We're moving away from COVID, so we want to have separate registration numbers, so it's a little bit more organized. We also have a compact this year and a contract between our families, and Mrs. Porter will go through what that contract is in terms of what the learning style is. It's very similar to what we do for Kindergarten Launch Academy and STEM, because it takes a special learner to choose that option, and now that we're hopefully moving away from COVID, I want to get our kids that picked that option, our families that chose that option, back into the schools if that was their only reason. We do believe that Pbla will serve approximately 2% of our kids, and that's typical. So we still have that option, and we will still continue to educate our kids with our teachers. So typical changes in there are fees, names as we align to standards. I'm going to start with middle school. The one big change that you will see, and I shared at the last meeting with my presentation, is we're adding 6, 7, 8 ELA honors, English Language Arts honors. It's time to add that honors track to the middle school, which we're really excited about. Moving on to the high school, we are also adding, we have 9 and 10 honors for ELA, but what we're doing is we are shifting it to a pre-AP class. And the reason why we're doing that is because 11 and 12 is APs, so we want to vertically align that so that we are following our College Board and our Ohio standards. Our high school seals, so the class of 2023, we have 2 seals that our students with this class and moving forward need to attain. And with our fine arts seal and with our technology seal, we cannot allow our 8th graders high school credit and then to earn that seal. So we are shifting our art course to a half credit that connects with our standards, and we are also changing our Woods class to 8th grade standards. But I do want to preface this with kids can still in 8th grade take a 9th grade art class, but it will truly be a 9th grade art class. So our counselors will walk through that process, and it's part of our acceleration policy. So although you see that change, it's still an opportunity for our kids, but in order to earn that seal, it has to be considered a 9th grade course. So I hope that eliminates any confusion with that. see, I talked about that. You'll see orchestra wins is gone. It doesn't mean orchestra wins is gone. It means that we are only offering strings because winds never goes through. So winds is a different type of instrument within orchestra. We still allow kids to participate in that, but it's always one class at each high school. So we just wanted to make that change. One of the most exciting parts of the registration guide is financial literacy. For the class of 2026, it is an ODE requirement outside of U.S. government. U.S. government will still be a credit, but we will also have a half credit of financial literacy that our social studies teachers will teach. There's specific certification for this, and it will be offered to 11th and 12th. So starting next year, it is a requirement for our 9th grade students, but it will not come into fruition until 11th and 12th grade. So our kids can take it as an elective, which we're really excited about. And that, in a nutshell, I sent it to you ahead of time, are the changes. I'll open it up to questions, comments, or concerns that you have.
Yeah, what was the financial literacy, it's like, can you describe that?
Yeah,
What that's gonna be?
it really is like a micro and macroeconomics. And so you look at not only financing and a personal budget, but overall and how that fits into the community. It is a semester course, and actually Mr. Thomas over at Normandy High School has already written the curriculum. We offered it this year as a topics course at Normandy to pilot the program, and you will see an adoption with that curriculum in the spring.
Financial literacy, it's been around for a while.
Yeah, it was merged in government.
Yeah, and that's, we merged in government. And, you know, the idea obviously is for kids to be able to graduate from high school and at least have a clue, you know, what's going to be coming at them a little bit from an economic standpoint. So I'm glad it's going to be standing alone, quite honestly. And there are curriculum materials also that, whether interested or not, that can be had from local credit unions, and even volunteers from credit unions and banks to come in as guest speakers and set things up and help kids and so on and so forth without any gain to them. It's just something they do as part of the program, so something to look at.
I like that policy alignment after the game of life. And I think 2 years gives you plenty of time to open a bank.
Right. Any other questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So she under 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mrs. Strauko.
All right,
Extended that matrix.
what was the time?
She's less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, I have 5:17.
That's because you asked her to
We
explain
were
the whole
holding you
course.
to it. Yeah, but that was a question, I ran it over probably.
Yeah, well, that's usually
Like
about
that's a
6:45.
You did great. You did great, thank you.
Okay, anything else with curriculum, or are we at?
We gotta vote on
We gotta vote on them all
Oh, gotta do one at a time, right?
now. Yeah.
All right, resolution 2021-12-531.
Mr. Vaughn,
Yes.
Mr. Kreis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz,
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus,
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-531 has been approved, so back to normal.
Right. I move to adopt resolution 2021-12-532, approval of the 2022-2023 middle school course guide. Second.
Motion second for 2021-12-532. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Vaughn,
Yes.
Mr. Kreis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus,
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-532 has been approved.
I move to adopt resolution 2021-12-533, approval of the 2022-2023 Pbla high school course guide. Second.
Motion second for 2021-12-533. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-533 has been approved.
I move to adopt resolution 2021-12-534, approval of the 2022-2023 Pbla middle school course guide. Second.
Excuse me, have a motion second for 2021-12-534. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-534 has been approved.
I move to adopt resolution 2021-12-535, authorizing purchase of sheet music. Ready. Second.
Motion and second for 2021-12-535. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Ms. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-535 has been approved.
I move to adopt resolution 2021-12-536, approval of overnight out-of-state field trips. Second.
Motion and a second for 2021-12-536. Questions or comments?
This is for the Washington DC trip.
Eighth grade trip.
Great trip.
Going on forever and ever.
Hopefully we can go.
Any other questions? Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Ms. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-536 has been approved.
Unless another board member has anything else to discuss, this concludes curriculum for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Mr. Kreis, any business?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2021-12-537, authorizing purchase of Chromebooks.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for 2021-12-537. Questions or comments?
Do we want to
These are
just-
to replace
that?
the other ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, this is part of the normal rotation.
Just checking.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-537 has been approved.
Move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-538, authorizing purchase of desktop computers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for 2021-12-538. Any questions or comments? Same thing, right, part of the rotation?
Yeah, and we're actually using ESSER funds for these as well, so a little bit of savings to the general fund.
Thank you. Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-538 has been approved.
I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-539, approval granted to outgoing board member to purchase MacBook.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for 2021-12-539.
I did.
Sorry.
Short apps are wonderful.
No offense, John.
Mr. Nucio?
She got excited.
This is standard.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's standard practice when a board member and administrator leaves the district to purchase out their item. They'll be purchasing it at exactly what we would wholesale auction it off to because it's several years old already at this point.
It's not a deal.
You just don't want to transfer your information.
Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Sure. Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
I abstain. 2021-12-539 has been approved.
I move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-540, authorizing award of the bid for the James E. Hanna Elementary School abatement and demolition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for 2021-12-540. Questions or comments?
Are we finally there?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually pretty exciting,
This
right?
has
We
popped
can-
up a few times over the years.
We can finally start the work on this, and I think it's anticipated to, I think about 6 or 8 months.
Starts February and finishes June or July.
So a good amount of time it'll take, but it's exciting to be able to rid the community of what is sort of an eyesore and quite frankly sometimes a nuisance at this point.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
And we have TAM's tax anticipation note funds left over from 2016 that been sitting aside for this. So it's not general fund money.
Yeah, it's been around for a few years.
Yeah.
Thank you for the explanations. Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-540 has been approved.
Unless another board member has anything to discuss in business, this concludes business for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Price, but we're right back at you with finance.
Yes, I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-541, approval of the November 2021 financial report.
Second.
Motion second for 2021-12-541. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-541 has been approved.
I move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-542, ratification of investments.
Second.
Motion and a second for 2021-12-542. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-542 has been approved.
I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-543, approval of supplemental appropriations.
Second.
Motion and a second for 2021-12-543. Questions or comments?
There was a large number up there.
Yeah, I was
so-
just gonna ask.
I
you
know,
about that.
we had the last meeting, I talked about others, at the end of one grant year, after you get the final approval from the state, you can take the leftover funds and move it to the new grant year, which is 9122, and Fund 516 is special ed or idea. So that's what we did, it just didn't get on the last meeting, it was the same thing we did with all the other federal grant funds. And the 401, that's auxiliary service, that's non-public schools. We had leftover funds, and with them, you have to return the leftover funds to the state. This actually dates back to 2019, but that's what that's for. Those are smaller programs.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
I don't. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Sean. Mr. Nucio.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, resolution 2021-12-543 has been approved.
I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-544, approval of then and now certificates over $3,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for 2021-12-544. Questions or comments? Go ahead.
Okay, so this also deals with the carryover. You have until June 30th to do a purchase order, and you can pay whatever's encumbered by September 30th. So anything you have left over, you can pay. You can't open a new purchase order during that time. But we got the bills are dated 9/21, 9/24. So by the time it got to us, it gets approval, it's past the 9/30 date. So we couldn't pay it because it's past September 30th. So we had to carry it over funds to the next grant year. And we had to open a new purchase order with the new grant year is set up 2021 to 2022. So we put up a new PO, that's why there's this issue.
So is this on the vendor?
Pretty much,
Very much.
yep,
It's good to know that our people learn that we don't do this.
yep.
I told now compared to three,
4 years ago, we were doing them all the time.
was, yeah, I mean, there was a long list.
These are rarities. We appreciate that they're rarities.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-544 has been approved.
I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-545, approval of employee benefits consultant contract.
Second.
Motion second for 2021-12-545. Questions or comments?
Savings, more expensive, why we switch?
It's actually more expensive. They're all paid out of, I know you're
I am.
but it's actually
I've
paid
never
out
heard
of.
you say those words together.
It's okay when it's coming from his fund.
This is paid out of our self-insurance fund.
Okay.
It's not general fund. We had a consultant for the last 11 years, and I didn't think we were getting the value that I think our school district needs.
Okay.
And so we brought in different consultants to do a presentation, and it was at our insurance meeting, and the unions and all administration, it was unanimous that Oswald was the best choice. And they have some good ideas on how to make our program better, our self-insurance program better, and probably in the future save us money, even though they cost more on the front end.
Do you know how much more approximately?
It's approximately $30,000 more per year. But it's not general fund, it's self-insurance.
Can I offer just a comment too? I just wanted to compliment Mr. Nucio on his work with our employee unions, this is a really critical position because if our employee groups don't trust what our insurance consultant is sort of helping advocate and the changes they might be suggesting, it really is a pointless service. And Mr. Nucio did a really nice job of actually working with them on the front end too, to take the larger number of proposals and really wean them down. And finalists, he worked with the labor leaders to do that, and then certainly went through the insurance committee on the back end, and to be able to get unanimous consent for this. While I understand it's more expensive, it also is invaluable to have the buy-in of our employee groups as we go into negotiations, listening to what are best practices in the insurance industry.
If you believe it's advantageous and it's the right option? Yeah.
We're trusting you at this point.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Nucio.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus?
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Yes, 2021-12-545 has been approved.
I move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-546, acceptance of contributions and donations. Second.
We have a motion and a second for 2021-12-546. Questions or comments?
Steve?
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much, Amelia, for your donation to Green Valley. As always, I appreciate it and think that people remember the Parma City Schools with their kind donations. It's always a blessing.
Excuse me. Ditto. Kind of let you take over the lead on that, but I think we're all appreciative of everything that is donated our way. Any questions or comments? Mr. Nucio.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus?
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Yes, 2021-12-546 has been approved.
Unless another board member has anything to discuss, this concludes finance for this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Price. Moves us to legislation.
So I will not be repetitive in what House Bill 126 does to our district, but I will quickly I think everybody in this room knows who their representatives are, but to anybody watching, how absolutely critical it is that some items like this are stopped before they're signed by the governor. To contact your House representative, you can look them up online, or we have copies here that have a list of it with all their contact information. But it's items like this that come forward that really kind of take the legs out of our ability to do our jobs. And it's it's 1,000 knife cuts like this that lead to, operating levies and property tax increases and things like that. So really, you have a very brief moment to be able to capture the attention of our House reps and tell them, please don't just sign this as is, and we need further discussion about that. So and all of you here, I highly recommend you reach out to your House representative and say, hello, this is not good for us. So unless anybody else has any other legislation? That's it.
Thank you very much. Good presentation. Human Resources, Mrs. Bratz.
Thank you, Mr. Schweitzer. I move for the adoption of Resolution 2021-12-547, approval of the following certificated exhibits: confirmation of certificated replacement, confirmation of stipend amount, confirmation of supplemental appointment, approval of certificated non-compensated leave of absence, acceptance of certificated resignation.
Second.
A motion and second for 2021-12-547. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio.
Mrs. Bratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn? Mr. Schweitzer?
Yes. 2021-12-547 has been approved.
I move for the adoption of Resolution 2021-12-548, approval of the following classified exhibits: confirmation of classified appointments replacements, confirmation of change of classified assignment, approval of classified stipend, confirmation of classified resignation, approval of classified non-compensated leave of absence.
Second.
We have a motion and second for 2021-12-548. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio.
Mrs. Bratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Yes. 2021-12-548 has been approved.
I move for the adoption of Resolution 2021-12549, acceptance of classified retirement.
Second.
Motion and second for 2021-12549. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio?
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12549.
This is the walk-on resolution that was approved for action this evening. So I move for the adoption of Resolution 2021-12549.1, resolution to authorize a school resource officer agreement with the City of Parma Police Department.
Second.
We have a motion and second for 2021-12549.1, the walk-on as amended. Any questions or comments?
I do have two quick questions.
Sure.
So this is for Shiloh and Greenbrier,
Correct.
because those are the voids we're having trouble filling.
Correct.
We do have the same services at all of our other secondary buildings, right?
Yeah, Seven Hills has been great about staffing Hillside. In fact, there's an officer there almost every day who's very well respected and really loved by the staff and the students. The high schools have really had no problem staffing. I know Valley Forge particularly has a great relationship with Parma Heights, and this is not to slight Parma, but in terms of hearing about the connections that are made, it certainly Valley Forge stands out as a real strength. So it really was those two middle schools that we just were not able to staff.
And the duties, responsibilities between calling them an SRO and staffing through the police department are going to be the same, correct?
They are, but the SRO has had specific training to really work in schools, as opposed to just folks that pick up shifts. And again, those folks do a great job for us, so that's not to demean them. But an SRO has specific training to work with students, and given the fact that they have that training and that demeanor and that mentality, our principals are really excited to be able to employ them in some of our restorative practices work that we've been really working at all of our levels, but middle school particularly. So we're excited to be able to add this.
Ethan? Anybody else?
I was also elated to know that we're going to be able to add SROs to our buildings. Continuity, and seeing the same face over and over, I think builds and fosters relationships for the kids, and the trust factor.
Yeah, and I think I would also mention that really, I mean, this is sort of an emergency pilot. It came out of need, but at the same time, we would love to potentially expand this, because we do think it has some real potential to impact the building climate in a positive way.
Super, thank you. Mr. Nucio?
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12549.1, the walk-on as amended has been approved.
Unless another board member has anything to discuss this evening, that will conclude human resources. Or rather, yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Bratz. And now to policies. Mrs. Carpus.
Yes. I move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-550, approval of the following revised policies. Policy 2271, College Credit Plus Program. Policy 3217, Weapons. Policy 4217, Weapons. Policy 5111, Eligibility of Resident Non-resident Students. Policy 8330, Student Records.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Resolution 2021-12-550. Once again, as with past, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that these are changes that have been recommended by Pbla and modernize.
They are. It was a lot of
what we
language.
had.
Yeah, we talked about it at the last meeting too, and they were just mostly language things. And the weapons, there's two different because there was the different staff and stuff like that.
Thank you. Mr. Nucio?
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-550 has been approved.
I move to adopt Resolution 2021-12-551, approval of the following new policies. Policy 1617, Weapons.
Second.
Motion and second for 2021-12-551. Questions or comments?
Again, that's just another information.
Thank you. Mr. Nucio?
Mrs. Carpus.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Kreis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bratz.
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Yes, 2021-12-551 has been approved.
Unless any other board member has anything for policy, that will conclude policy for this evening.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Carpus. Any information requested by board members?
Absolutely. You ready for this?
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
I'm not ready for this
Come on.
either. Oh, yeah. All right, so,
What if I would have skipped over that?
you're not allowed to skip.
We'd have found a way to,
I would have figured out a way anyway. This, I'm gonna say a couple things about, John, before we finish up here. And I may not make it through my whole spiel. Dr. Smilek kindly took most of it, which means those are the words that describe John. Some of the things I think about with John, other than calling him Coach Butch, wherever.
Going back there.
With his kids. I think words I use to describe him, I would say family man. And he has certainly made the board a family and treats it as such. He is kind, he is courteous, almost going to Boy Scout route. I don't know about thrifty and reverent, but if you were to look up educational leader in the dictionary, you can see his picture. He's a fantastic educational leader. He has become a great friend, and always will be a voice for students, even not being in the role that he is now. And I appreciate the last 3 years of being your assistant or vice president. I have learned so much from you. Pardon me?
Stop.
I'm good. I was doing good until I saw that tear. Anyway, so
we had mentioned.
so anyway, we on behalf of your service here with us, we got your own little gavel.
Oh.
Take home and.
How cool is that?
Okay. That one you get to put on your mantle or
Holy
your shelf
cow.
or wherever.
I like that.
Yeah, that's it. Let's see. Let me describe what it says.
That's a
on
good
there.
idea.
Yeah, so it says John Schweitzer, the president of Parma City School District, Board of Education from 2018 to 2021. A voice for students we could not get on there. It's too many lines, but that was.
That kept me, out of petty theft at this point.
All right, well done.
As we leave. Thank you, man.
Absolutely, buddy.
This violates protocol a little bit, but Mr. Petardi sat here through this entire
I didn't
meeting.
know.
So, Mr. Petardi, do you want to say a few words?
I do.
I'm sorry, Vic.
And I jotted a few things down. Well, I thought city council meetings were fun.
Sarcasm always
Right.
good.
But Dr. Smilek, thanks for allowing me to say a few words. First of all, John, I can't thank you enough. Being a Parma resident for 61 years, and I think we go back to close to 50 years.
50 years. 49.
I don't know if I've truly met a more admirable person than John, truly. And I know I echo probably all your thoughts as well. John, I've known him, like I said, for almost 50 years, about the most admirable person I think I've ever met. I've been a resident of Parma for over 60 years, 61 years as well. And our schools, obviously, I'm not telling any of you anything that you don't know, are truly the backbone of all of our communities, Parma Heights and Seven Hills. As I've said, I've known John and Debbie and his family for, again, close to 50 years. John has always been a leader, always. From my very first day of class that I had in his first year of teaching, you just know, and I've been blessed and fortunate to have a number of very influential teachers over the years. But John obviously is at the top of that list. We became, he not only was my teacher, but we became friends on that day. Throughout that summer, he and Debbie hadn't started a family as of yet. He became part of my family, quite honestly. And I'm proud that he has been part of my family for close to 50 years. As I said, John has always been a leader, and leaders make tough decisions. You all know that John, over his time with the school district, has made some very tough decisions, along with a number of you and along with the administration as well. I wish the remaining school board well. It's a very critical time for our schools, as I'm sure I'm not telling you, any of you, anything you don't know. I wish new board member Mark Ruda good luck and success. I have utmost confidence in the remaining board members as well as yourself that you will lead our district in a very positive direction. We as a district are in good hands with Superintendent Smilek, his administration. Again, I was kidding earlier about how much fun I had tonight, but I always respected Dr. Smilek and his administration, but quite honestly, I even respect them all a little bit more after knowing more of their responsibilities and the passion that they have for their jobs also. So with that, John, I just can't thank you enough for everything you've done for our school district, but more than that, for being a friend for many, many years. Thank you all for letting me say a few words.
Thanks very much. Thanks. Thanks.
You want to say anything now? Or later?
Now is a good time.
Now is a great time.
Now, I'm telling you, John, I want to thank you for taking me under your wing and showing me the ropes and giving me the encouragement that Mickey gave me as well to get on the board, and I'm really proud of what you've done, and I'm glad to know you as a friend, and I'm really glad I got to know you as my mentor in this business, so I appreciate it. All you've done for me, John. Thank you.
We may be colleagues in another place.
We will be non-golfers having a great time.
There's got to be a saying for that. We got to
Yeah,
put that together.
we can do that.
Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
Thanks. All right. Anything else?
Questions?
Oh, Cynthia's going to
Cindy
say
does
something.
have something.
Are there new questions?
Cindy does have something.
Oh, okay.
Well, before I ever knew you, John, I knew Butch. And,
Don't
or
be
I
all
should
over the
say,
internet now.
I knew of Butch. Your reputation preceded you in my life. And Butch walked on water. And had always knew that kids were top of the line, the most important thing. And then over the years, as I got to know you a little bit, and more, that just was underlined and reinforced, I guess I should say. And then coming on the board, I got to know you in a whole different way. And I know you were very responsible for encouragement for me to come and apply for the board position, and I'm very grateful for that. But working with you has exceeded my expectations and been a wonderful experience. You're a leader and an outstanding, fierce advocate for the children, the staff of this district, the residents of this community, and I am grateful for that on all of our behalfs. And thank you, can't exaggerate my thanks and appreciation for the work that you have done here on behalf of our schools, and thank you for your friendship and your leadership and your mentorship and help through all of this. I wish you all the very, very best in whatever path you take now.
The Kirk path?
You better expect that we're gonna be calling on you. You need to stay involved and, continue to be, part of this district. But thank you very much, we love you, and, are so grateful for everything that you've done for the school. Thank you.
Thanks. Much appreciated. Now, are we done?
Yeah, let's make Jack something important here.
Oh, we have to do, we have the
Yeah, we have to
opportunity
do-
to questions.
Are there any new questions or concerns you read the record this evening? No. There is business of the board still, okay? The 2022 organizational meeting will be held on Thursday, January 6, 2022, at 6 p.m. right here in the Karen Dendorfer Board Meeting Room. And in order to have that meeting, the board needs to appoint a president pro temp for the 2022 organizational meeting to lead that at the beginning of that meeting. So we need to vote on anything, Pam, or just appoint?
Just agree by consensus.
Agree by consensus? There's,
The Christmas cow.
You're the man.
The Christmas clown.
It's a hat.
Cow, no, it's a shirt, the Christmas cow.
They said clown.
milk that thing.
And with that being said, Jack
Okay,
Price.
so,
Jack Price.
and Jack, it appears Jack Price is the president pro tem for the 2022 organizational meeting as people get sworn into office.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Now it's my turn. I had started to put a written statement together, and I threw it away.
Sounds like something I did.
It's gonna be tough. Because, well, you guys all said it, so, I'll go with that. But, it's not goodbye. It's next steps. I just want to thank the community and everybody for the opportunity for this be my, I'm sorry. Kind of capstone to an educational career. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you very much. If I had a mic. If I have this.
Don't drop that.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna use that, chase my wife around the room or something, right?
I would
Don't have a
double
filter.
dog dare you.
Debbie may use
I
that.
was gonna
Don't
say,
get sassy
I
about
would double dog dare you to even tell Deb that.
Oh, no, she beat me up.
There was actually.
That's why they don't give me a mic.
There's actually a phrase I wrote down, just can't help himself.
It's a very accurate statement.
I wrote that down, so I know.
I'm sure it's cost me on occasion. As we go. Thank you, everybody, honestly, thank you so much. I appreciate it. What I wouldn't mind, and I didn't know if I could get it out a minute ago, is if I could have a picture. Sure. With all you guys.
Absolutely.
With that, I move to adopt resolution 2021-12-533 to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for 2021-12-553. Questions or comments? Mr. Nucio?
Mr. Schweitzer?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Bratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpus?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Resolution 2021-12-553 has been approved. This meeting is adjourned.